So we're going to do this one, but we're going to pretend like we didn't just do a 2-hour show that was really good. And then when I downloaded the files, there was nothing. So now we have to do it all over and pretend like it's fresh.
Okay.
I can do that.
Are you sure? Are you sure it's recording?
I'm pretty sure it's recording.
Okay. I can record on my end.
No. We're good. We're just going to do it. And I think, the theme song's already started. So now we don't have any choice but to start the show.
Perfect.
And for this show, I even dressed up for the occasion, Ace.
I like the Fred Perry. Looks good.
I'm rocking the Fred Perry shirt. I like the Cat House hoodie.
Oh, yeah. You like that? This is my most worn hoodie in this house. There's probably 20 fucking hoodies. And this is the most worn one. This is my comfy hoodie.
And if you want to get a Cat House hoodie or a Cat House shirt or Headbangers Ball shirt or anything like that, just go to cathousehollywood.com. No better way before we even introduce the show than to start with a little ad. cathousehollywood.com. Coming to you from the Cat House.
Get your sweaters.
God damn it, I'm doing this start the show before the theme song runs out.
All right,
Listen to this theme song. It's good, right? You like this theme song?
I've never heard it before.
Yes, you have. You know what band this is, don't you?
What, the theme song?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the song. Didn't I write it?
No.
What's the theme song then?
That's Battery Club.
Oh, I thought it was the one that starts with the bass line.
No. You're thinking of this song, which I have used in the show before.
Oh, I thought that was your theme song.
No. So we're at 1:47, and we haven't started the show. So
that's okay.
Let me just keep this. So let me just start over, okay? I am Riki Rachtman, and joining me on the Cat House Hollywood podcast with the patience of whatever kind of animal has a lot of patience, my good friend Ace Von Johnson. We did this show, and it was pretty good. But you know what, Ace? I think we can do the next one even better.
I thought we were just going to pretend like we didn't do it.
What? Oh, that would have been normal. We should just. Should I start the theme song over again? No. We're just going to start it. No.
Now we have to own it.
Yeah, we're 2 minutes, 40 seconds into the show. It doesn't matter. Joining me is
Ace Fred Perry.
What? Yeah,
I like your Fred Perry.
I dressed up for today's show. You probably can't tell that listening to the show, but just so you know, I use something today that a lot of people don't use in this world, and it's effort. People just don't give enough effort. Like, this Cat House Hollywood podcast could come out once a week, but I'm just not putting out the effort. But in this episode, not only am I putting out effort, but we have got my good friend Ace Von Johnson. Ace Von Johnson was a longtime guitarist with the band Faster Pussycat, and currently he is the guitarist with LA.Guns, but he has also played in a whole bunch of other bands. And today's show is going to be fun because today we are talking about a huge festival that we are going to be going to this coming Saturday. I don't know when you're listening to it, but it's June 8th. But for us, it's this coming Saturday. So it's going to be so damn interesting for you, even if this is after the festival, because we're going to tell some stories and talk about pretty much every single band on this festival. And yes, there's a lot of great punk rock bands like Misfits, Social Distortion, but we're talking Iggy Pop, Sublime, The Damned, Suicidal Tendencies, Power Trip. I mean, the list goes on, but we're going to go and tell you some stories. I mean, I've got great Danzig stories. I've got great Suicidal Tendencies stories. And we're going to tell you some stories and how we feel about each band for those of you that are going to the festival. Ace, how are you doing this evening?
I'm very well. I'm just hanging out in my comfortable Cat House Hollywood hoodie.
You know, you can get Cat House Hollywood hoodies and Cat House shirts and Headbangers Ball shirts at Cat House Hollywood. Thank you for asking. Well, you can get them from whenever you see me and just say, I'm going to take this, Ricky. And I say, yeah, of course, Ace. cathousehollywood.com. 4 minutes and 40 seconds. We're into the show right now.
Does that apply to the car? Can I take the car or just show up, take the
Nobody touches my Blackwing. Have you even seen my new car?
Maybe. I don't know. I can't remember. I remember. It doesn't matter.
You're not a car guy, are you?
Not really. No. I have a utilitarian vehicle. I have a Jeep Patriot.
I have always, I think, driven cars far too expensive for me. Like, I can't afford my cars, but I like them. And I love this car. I've got a Blackwing. And you did see my tattoo, though, right? Yeah, my
Good.
big Cadillac tattoo.
I like it.
Yeah, so we were talking about clothes, we're talking about cars, we're talking about tattoos, all these things that you can't really see on this podcast.
Yeah.
But now we're 5 minutes and 20 seconds in. I think we're going to get started. In Pomona, they're doing this big festival called No Value. So many bands on it. And Ace Von Johnson, although he has been in Faster Pussycat and is in LA.Guns, he's played in a whole bunch of punk rock bands back in the day. I didn't even know that when I first met Ace, who at that time I would think like, oh, the new guitarist in Faster Pussycat, who was in that band for how long were you in Faster Pussycat?
A brief 10 years.
10? See, that's so hard for me to believe that you were in that band for 10 years.
Yep. Yeah.
How long has Faster Pussycat been together? As long as since 86.
1986.
Yeah, because they started just a little bit before the Cat House started. But Ace and I both have a big love for old punk rock. And on this show, there's a lot of punk rock bands and some rock bands, and one band that is nothing but thrash metal and phenomenal. And we are going to talk about some of these bands. And we're going to start off real quickly by going through some of the early bands that are playing early the night, because we're going to go really early in this probably dusty field at the Pomona Fairplex and just be there from the first band to the very last. The old boys will play. Southern boys, I might add.
Yeah, good old boys from the South here now.
But I don't think we're good old boys from the South.
No, but just
but we can say Ace has lived in Nashville for how long?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. And I've lived in North Carolina for 10 years. We are both from Los Angeles. Ace was actually born in the hospital that I went to get my first broken arm fixed at when I was skateboarding. It could have been the same day.
What year was that, you know?
It was probably 1970. Wait, when were you born?
Dad?
When were you? Fuck off. When were you born?
December 82.
82 you were born?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
I'm a millennial.
Fuck off.
Class of 01.
I'm Jurassic. Okay, let's talk about some of the bands. Well, most of the bands that are playing on this show are bands that are, I hate to say are from my time, but they are. I mean, there are bands that are on this bill that I've seen since high school. But let's talk about the early bands. And I'm going to start off with the Skeletones, the first band I believe on the bill. I can't think of Skeletones songs.
I'm guessing it's just going to be like kind of a ska stage. I'm sure they're not running all, from bottom to top. I think it's probably like you might be looking at a few different stages, maybe like two main stages and a side, and then two side stages. I don't know how they're going to do that, but some of the ska bands, you can tell they're kind of lower down on the bill.
Well, the Untouchables are playing back in about 84 or 5, I'd say. There was a really cool rockabilly scene that I really loved in Los Angeles. And we had bands like, Jimmy and the Mustangs and the Rockin' Rebels and the Paladins and all these just badass bands. And the Untouchables were part of that whole mod ska scene. And if you, saw Quadrophenia or remember that song Rumble in Brighton, it was about the rockers versus the mods. And we really had the rockers versus the mods in Hollywood. I remember the Untouchables would play at the Roxy and there'd be all these Vespas hanging out. And then we'd go to like a rockabilly show and there'd be all these like hot rods and motorcycles and greasers. And of course I was with the greasers, but we had a really good rivalry. And then as time heals everything, it turns out the Untouchables were a pretty big band in LA and a really good fun band. Have you heard them?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've actually seen them before. I've seen most of the bands on that tier. I think the only band I'm really unfamiliar with is Skeletones. But yeah, Untouchables are great. I think I have a record from them.
Hepcat, I know, was on I believe on an Epitaph compilation, like one of the punk around. Are you? I know I've heard one of their songs. I knew I liked it. Oh, that's what they were on. Give them the boot. That's right.
Hellcat.
Yes. Yeah. And the Selector is another band that I don't remember when they started, but it's got to be in the mid-late 70s. I'm thinking maybe a little bit later, and they used to have a song. It's just the same old show on the radio. It was. Do you know that song?
I feel like hearing you sing it makes
Destroyed
me not want to know it. But I know that song.
Hearing me sing it makes you not want to know it and definitely not want to like it. The Aquabats are playing. The Aquabats are kind of a fun, goofy band. I know they've done stuff like Bowling for Soup for like kids. Like they wear like little costumes and play a lot of kids type stuff, but punky, right?
Yeah, they all wear costumes and they're kind of gimmicky but fun. And Travis Barker from Blink-182 fame, or whatever you want to call it, he started as an Aquabat.
Was not aware of that. Fishbone is playing. Fishbone, big part of the LA scene. Angelo, one of the true sweethearts in the LA scene. I mean, people that have ever run into Angelo, I mean, you've met him before, right?
Yeah, he wouldn't know me from a hole in the ground, but every interaction I had with him was great.
Just a real fun guy.
We were getting on a plane. We were actually starting a Warped Tour together. This was a fucking lifetime ago. And the same tour, we played Pomona Fairplex. And we got on the same plane wherever we were to go to start this tour, I think in like Salt Lake. And he walked by and he goes, "I like your hat. That's a good pork pie." And I had this, like great pork pie hat. I remember being like, "Well, that's Angelo. That's awesome."
Yeah, he's a good guy. And they were, I don't know who came around first, them or Red Hot Chili Peppers, but it was all about the same time, right?
Yeah, I would say probably within a year or two of each other. Kind of the same thing.
That'll be a fun band to see. Next band I'm going to mention is, I'm going to be completely honest with you, that when I was younger in high school, I was not the biggest fan of the Crass. I don't know why, but just lately I've been listening to some Crass and really like them, especially the song...
Do they owe us a living?
Course we do. Course we do.
Course they do.
Course they fucking do. That's a great song. That's a great song.
Yeah. They really started the anarcho-punk thing that so many other bands like Discharge and the Partisans and all these other bands kind of took the baton and ran with. But
what's anarcho? I've never heard of anarcho. Like, I always thought it was like oi.
No, Crass is definitely not oi. Anarcho-punk is like the Subhumans and Crass and Flux of Pink Indians and basically like politipunk at the same time as like UK 82 stuff was happening, like the Exploited and GBH and One Way System. There was another wave of bands like some of the bands I just mentioned doing like this anarcho, like fuck the government kind of stuff. Not that Exploited didn't have their fair share of that as well, but they were a little more oi, if you will, sonically speaking, and the anarcho-punk bands were definitely a little less musically inclined, would be the nice way to put it. And it'll if you listen to Crass, some of it's, you can tell the musicianship is pretty poor.
Pretty poor.
And I'm a fan.
Pretty poor.
Yeah. Like it.
In rock and roll, sometimes that doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter at all. I think that's what makes them so great. If you listen to the first Crass record called The Feeding of the 5,000, the average listener can tell that like the guitars are out of tune and they don't know what they're fucking doing. And they're just shouting basically slogans over, and stabbing guitar and smashing away on the drums. You can tell it's pretty rudimentary, but that's what makes it good for what it is.
Definitely going to see that band. The next band, not familiar with, but you are familiar with for a reason. Ace has given me some music to listen to that I really, really liked, and he told me not to talk about it on the show and don't announce it, but we're going to do it anyway, but we'll do it a little bit later. And I think it has a relationship to this band, Morning Noise.
Yeah, Morning Noise is a really awesome, horror punk band out of New Jersey from the early 80s, and basically started as a bunch of kids that lived across the street literally from the Misfits and were influenced by them entirely. So if you listen to early Morning Noise, it is the closest thing to early Misfits that you're going to get without it actually being the Misfits. And then Steve Zing, the main guy, went on to join Sam Hain with Glenn Danzig in the 80s, and then now is the current bass player for Danzig. And they just put out a new record. They have a new singer, who's a buddy of mine named Robbie Bloodshed. But Morning Noise has a new record out. They're great, really amazing horror punk out of New Jersey.
You mentioned the Misfits, and I had this discussion today with Leah about the Misfits and Sam Hain and Danzig. And I know I had the Misfits albums, and I remember that I had this cheap one that I bought from Nikki Sixx. Did I ever tell you that story?
Wow.
Yeah, but I had a Jeep. So me and Nikki used to be really good friends, and Nikki was going out with Vanity from Vanity 6. Did you know that?
That I knew, yeah.
Yeah, she was just beautiful, but maybe a little cuckoo maybe in that time, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to say anything about her because she was beautiful. But he was going out with her, and he let her drive his Jeep, and she never drove it. She used to leave it in the rain without the top off. So I ended up just buying it for Nikki and fixed it up. I don't know where I'm going with the story, except I remember always listening to the Misfits there. But I will be honest with you, I wasn't the biggest Sam Hain fan, but when Danzig came out, that album was... I just became I said while I was on Headbangers Ball, I always said, well, my favorite bands, even though everybody said that I said every band was my favorite band, but my two real favorite bands were Suicidal Tendencies and Danzig, which I still love dearly. And Danzig, when he became Danzig as opposed to being the Misfits, it was a totally different thing for him. And I'm going to say that a lot of that is because of Rick Rubin.
Oh yeah, I mean this is a slippery slope for me because I'm such a diehard fan. I mean, like I don't know if I can show you really, but I have a Sam Hain leg piece. My whole shin is a Sam Hain tattoo. So watching the band sort of following his musical trajectory from Misfits through Sam Hain into what became Danzig, if you follow closely, you can see the kind of throughway and where Rick Rubin grabbed what was at the time Sam Hain in '86. And said, look, this is really great. If we produced this and maybe polished up some of this sonically and some of the songwriting, we could maybe do something with this because he obviously heard the natural innate talent that Glenn had, especially in the 80s. I mean, and you think about his trajectory too from, let's say, 78 to early 90s. In a 15-year span, he did hardcore punk. He did, Ramon-style punk. I mean, the earlier Misfits is a little more catchy than the Earth AD era. Sam Hain is, goes from gamut of death rock to goth rock to post-punk to almost early heavy metal into Danzig, which you could argue is rock. The first record to me is like a rock record, and they progressively get heavier.
Well,
and then he put out a classical
tell you
album,
what it...
92.
Yeah, Elvis. When he did Elvis.
The Black Aria record.
Oh, that's right, which was... I never got into it. Maybe I should... That's something I should really give another listen to. But I think that we should... So much credit is owed to Rick Rubin because he took the Cult and he took Danzig. And I think he did the same thing by making them sound like they all put in a little bit of AC/DC. Because if you think the way the Mother starts, it's like down, 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 and then, down, that's like, those are all AC/DC riffs, even though the Cult doesn't sound like AC/DC and Danzig doesn't sound like AC/DC, but Rick Rubin took those Danzig, that first Danzig record and just rocked it up, and I freaking love it. And I also think that his ballads, when Glenn Danzig, he's got that 50s crooner vibe to him when he does ballads, and I think I'm just such a big Danzig fan, and we haven't even started talking about the Misfits. And Danzig, by the way, is not playing at the No Values show, but Misfits
the Misfits are
right. Yeah, we'll get back to that in a little bit. Wow, we got a lot of bands to talk about. Okay, real quick, Dead Milkmen. Dead Milkmen.
Never really got into them.
Dead Milkmen, but the song "Punk Rock Girl."
Of course, and Bitchin' Camaro.
Love the Bitchin'. Come on, Bitchin' Camaro, Bitchin' Camaro.
Bitchin' Camaro.
Donuts on your lawn. Bitchin' Camaro.
Bitchin' Camaro.
Tony Orlando and Don.
Over my neighbor.
Now it's in all the papers. I just got a Bitchin' Camaro.
Bitchin' Camaro.
With no insurance match, so if you see me on the road, please don't get a scratch. And that's the one that starts off with, we're going to go see the Doors cover band. It's a fun song. And Punk Rock Girl was probably, because I know they had a video that was even on MTV, right?
It was on Beavis and Butthead. That's how I heard of them as a kid. Yeah.
That's going to be a fun band to see. Next, I'm going to talk about Shattered Faith. Shattered Faith was a band from my youth, and they had a song called Trilogy that I don't know what it is. I really don't remember. My wife will say, remember yesterday when we were seeing that show, and I can't remember it, but that song Shattered Faith Trilogy, for some reason, that song is part of my youth, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Shattered Faith. You?
Yeah, I am as well. I've seen them before, but in sort of like a, just the singer with whoever he could get kind of thing. And coincidentally, the singer's son and I were in a band together for briefly about 15 years ago. And also the original guitar player is Kerry Martinez. And Kerry was in the U.S. Bombs, and I was in the U.S. Bombs with Kerry, and we've been friends since I was a teenager. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Shattered Faith with Kerry back in the band, as well as just seeing my buddy Kerry. So yeah, stoked on that.
Next band I'm going to talk about is a band that it's got to be one of the greatest. It's not going to be the greatest because me and Ace both share an opinion on who I think our greatest LA punk rock band is, I think. But this has got to be way up there. The Adolescents. The Adolescents is the one band that I can put on that blue record and know every single song. A lot of people that really weren't into punk that, I don't know if they played it anywhere else, but we had our radio station in LA called KROQ, and they had this song, Amoeba, which was kind of their hit, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many good Kids of the Black Hole. I mean, just
LA girl, LA world.
Tell me what, don't do it, LA girl. You didn't create our scene.
Yeah.
And
we hate them all, creatures.
And they used to do a song called I Hate Children, which I don't think they do anymore because everybody in the band has children.
Well, and Tony, the singer's a teacher.
He's a teacher.
Yeah. So much for that concept.
I'm pretty sure.
That record.
One of the great.
That record is just so important.
So good.
It's Rick Agnew, the guitar player. That guy's a genius. I mean, I don't think you'd have bands like Bad Religion or No Effects necessarily as we know them without
there's that Rick Agnew guitar sound that was just such a big part of that whole sound.
Did you know that Casey Royer and Rick Agnew, both of the Adolescents, technically started Social Distortion?
Well, you could tell that Rick Agnew was involved, but whenever you see Casey Royer, because believe it or not, I was listening to today, Johnny's Got a Problem from DI, which is Casey's other song.
Got a problem and he's out of control.
And when I was in a band called Battery Club, we had a guy that was in DI, and we had two people that played with DI that were in my band Battery Club, and at one point we did No Way with Tony from the Adolescents, I think. We'll see. We'll go ask him when I see him.
I wish DI was on the show.
You know what? I keep on saying like every band is on, but then today, we were listening to Descendants, something about Rancid, and there are a few bands that aren't on this show, but it's still such a great show. And one of the biggest surprises I'm going to talk about in a little bit is a thrash band that could and probably would have been. I mean, I look at them as they're a Texas thrash band that could have been as maybe big as Pantera, but we'll get to that in a little bit because I think it's interesting they're on the bill, but very glad they're on the bill. Don't know anything about the band Scowl.
I'm a new fan. Female-fronted punk rock kind of reminds me of Circle Jerks if it was a girl singer. They're up and coming. I have one of their, I think it's an EP. I'm a fan and looking forward to seeing them in person for the first time.
Next band is a band that I have covered one of their songs probably more than any song I've ever sung on stage. And we were talking about the great Agent Orange and the song Bloodstains. Yeah. Me and you have played that song so many times. I love that song. Me and Ace have gone up and done jams, and I'll screw up most songs. I've made big mistakes on stage, but I'll kill Bloodstains every single. It's easy, but
you do, yeah. There's that video of us doing it at that festival in Massachusetts, and there's like maybe 1,000 people in the audience, and you're
going
just nuts. Bloodstains.
And we were on stage. We had Alan Roberts from Life of Agony.
Yep.
And
was it Chris Decay on drums, maybe?
Yeah, and
I don't remember who drummed.
Yes.
Yeah, from the Genitorture.
Right. He was definitely in there. And why am I forgetting who the other person was? I know we had Ace Von Johnson on guitar.
Never heard of him.
And I know we played songs with Wayne from Hatebreed.
We did, but it wasn't that.
No.
I don't remember what we played. I don't remember what we played with who. I just know we did. I mean, we've jammed obviously a few times, but
if I could start
kind of events.
If I could start a band and do like an album and like a couple shows, it would be you, of course. It would be we'd probably have to throw my friend Roger in there, but it would be you, it would be Wayne, have to put Wayne in. And it would be Johnny Martin, who also plays with in LA.Guns and is now playing in Faster Pussycat.
Well, he filled in for the rest of the tour, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fun band.
Oh, yeah, completely. We just got to get the right drummer.
How tall are you?
Okay.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'11" and change.
You'd be taller than everybody else in that band.
It's what's weird is I never realized until maybe last year that I'm the tallest guy in LA.Guns.
Well, I know Tracy's a little fucker, but I didn't know that Phil was very short.
Phil's about an inch or so shorter than me. Johnny's much shorter than me, and so is Sean, the drummer. So, anyways, I never really think about stuff like that. I don't think I'm that tall. Just
to change the topic a little bit, not a lot of bands from our era, and they're not your era, but you're in the band, that still can bring it. But LA.Guns, whether I like Tracy or not, is not part of my opinion here. LA.Guns, I've always loved LA.Guns. LA.Guns put out their album is great, and it's just so funny because I feel the same way about Faster Pussycat and LA.Guns, that when we talk about the 80s rock scene, I think when I listen, Never Enough with the harmonies is such a good song, and Faster Pussycat does. There no throwing shade on any other bands, but to me, Faster Pussycat and LA.Guns are not the same as Warrant and Slaughter.
It's the punk element. It's the punk element that bands like LA.Guns and Faster Pussycat and Junkyard have.
Right.
That maybe the average audience member isn't aware of, but that undercurrent that's there is what makes them the sleazy or dirty or that, whatever. LA.Guns has covered punk songs repeatedly. Guns N' Roses. Look at half the Spaghetti Incidents, all punk bands.
Which we'll get to in just a little bit. Let's move forward. Cro-Mags, unfortunately, I've only seen the Cro-Mags with John Joseph singing. PMA, love John. But I've never seen the Cro-Mags with Harley, but you have.
I have. I've seen him several times. I actually spent a few weeks in Europe touring alongside Harley ages ago when I was in Murphy's Law. But I just saw Cro-Mags about a month ago supporting Helmet and was naive enough to get into the pit for, 3 or 4 songs and definitely got my ass handed to me. So they're great. I'm stoked that we get to see them.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. The Dickies, Dawn of the Dickies was one of the first albums that I bought probably in high school, and all their songs were funny. Not all of them, but they did a lot of covers like Nights in White Satin, that.
Yeah.
And their songs, they had serious topics like about Pep Boys, Manny, Mo, and Jack. And I was stuck in a pagoda with Trisha Toyota. Trisha Toyota was the big news lady in Los Angeles. With music, I believe that you and I agree pretty much on a lot of stuff. I was very surprised how much into a lot of old Black or Death or whatever metal that you were also into. So surprised that you were such a huge Carcass fan.
Massive Carcass.
I'm looking ahead to some of the other bands that we're going to get to, and there are probably maybe 4 bands on this build that were on Headbangers Ball. And I'd say about 3 bands that played the Cat House as well, I think.
You got to tell, when we get to them, you got to tell me which band it was. I know obviously who one of them is, but you got to tell which one actually played Cat House.
I'll tell you a band right now that played the Cat House that I'm very excited to see these ladies, and we are talking about L.7. L.7 was on Headbangers Ball. L.7 played the Cat House. Most people know them, I would think, for the song Andre, right?
Yeah, but they had a couple hits.
Well, let's pretend that we're dead. They're a fucking good band.
K-Rock used to play the shit out of that.
They did. Yeah. They're a really good band, and they recently played in Charlotte, and I missed them. And when L.7... Now, these are things that I definitely remember, and one I'm not sure if this happened, but I know that when they played, at that time, there was a commercial, and it said, pardon me, are those Jordache jeans? And the person would say, yes, they are. And they stopped the set and said, pardon me, are those Lip Service jeans? Because that was the big clothing line, RIP, my great friend Drew Bernstein. True. That was his company, and that was kind of funny. And the other thing, I'm going to ask Jennifer if this happened when we go to see them. I think one of them might have thrown a tampon out at the audience.
I think that was one of those things that probably happened, and then it got more publicity than anything, I don't know. Well, I remember
that's a band we're going to see the everything
tabloid thing.
The Bronx. The Bronx are in my. It's funny. I say a newer band. They've probably been together 15 years, but the Bronx
longer than that.
They're a good band. I really like the Bronx. I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Me too. I haven't seen them in probably 15 years.
Soul Glow, I've heard great stuff about, but don't know that much about them.
Soul Glow?
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Yeah, I don't know much about them, but I definitely want to see them play for sure.
There's a couple of bands that we're just going to kind of skip over, like Joyce Manor Ceremony, Lawrence Arms, and MS Paint. And the only reason is because otherwise it would take us forever. But I just don't know that much about either of the bands, so I'm excited to learn a bit about these bands. The Addicts. What?
You've never seen them. You've never seen the Addicts, right?
No, I've never seen the Addicts.
Oh, man. Obviously, it's a festival setting, so who knows what we're going to get from everybody. But the Addicts, at least as a headliner goes, put on a really great show. And, of course, I had what I just said about the Dickies where, they're not serious in their lyrical content. Neither are the Addicts. But for something about them appealed to me, maybe just because some of the lyrics were kind of darker, like, my baby got run over by a steamroller. It's like, okay, that's kind of Misfitsy. And their show is like going to a circus. Like, because they dressed up sort of,
they had like kind of a, this is really horrible compared, like the look almost an ICP meets Clockwork Orange. They coined inadvertently the term clockwork punk, and there's a couple bands like that, like Lower Class Brats and major something from Europe. I forgot what the fucking name is. Our friend Fred in Lower Class Brats?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's the newest member of the band.
Dude, that guy is also on the list of awesome people that are just like sweet guys. Like
he's a good dude. Great guitar player.
He's such a good guy. I love Fred.
He's also in Prong.
Next, we're going to go to a band. Okay, we'll talk first about The Exploited, then go to a band that I can't wait to talk about. The Exploited is another band that I know that was really big in the scene. They were they were an Oi band, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I don't think that they might have called themselves that, but they got lumped in with that whole Gary Bushell Oi scene in the, I'm going to say early 80s, like from 1980 on in England. Even in their logo, if you look at it, it says Exploited, and the only lowercase letter is the I. So like it says Oi, Exploited there.
So it is.
But they quickly became a crossover band once the lineup kind of started to shift by like the third or fourth record. Big John, their original guitar player, who's really a great punk songwriter, left and ended up having a pretty decent career as a stage manager and guitar tech. He worked for Nirvana, and I want to say Foo Fighters. And then he had some band in the early 90s with Shirley Manson from Garbage. I can't remember what they're called. Yeah. But anyways, Exploited, the second record, Troops of Tomorrow, I fucking love. If you want like a good Oi street punk, UK 82 exemplary record, Troops of Tomorrow. And then they have a crossover record called Beat the Bastards. I want to say maybe early 90s. And I promise you, I'm going to buy it for you, actually. You will love that record, Beat the Bastards.
There's certain bands, and I don't know if Exploited one, but I'm excited. I'm the first one to admit I don't really know the Exploited. I mean, I've always known the name. But we wouldn't have, I think, our thrash bands without, maybe we wouldn't have the Slayer or Metallica or, the Testaments or the Exoduses without that element of punk. I mean, in the Slayer album with the covers, there's a bunch of punk rock songs, and Metallica has done a Misfits song, I don't know if we would have which we're going to get to. Matter of fact, I'm going to talk about that next. But there's a bunch of songs and bands that we might not have without these punk influences. So it's nice that these bands are going to play that we know, but also good to see some big bands like the great Bad Religion is playing, and interesting Sublime. We're going to get on that a little bit, and Iggy Pop, and we got a lot more to talk about. So we're going to get going. Now I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about this band. The first punk rock show I ever went to was on Halloween at a place called the Hong Kong Cafe, and the Germs were on it, and Black Flag with Keith Morris singing was on the bill, and this band Chinas Comitas that I don't remember anything about, but Fear was on. And I remember Fear scaring the living shit out of me. And their songs were all like, let's have a war so you can go die.
You can go die.
Great song. There's so many of us. There's so many of us. There's so many. And Lee Ving he just scared the hell out of me. And they kept on.
Which was amazing, because when you met him, he was the sweetest guy.
Well, why don't you just cut off my story? Because what was amazing is when I met him, he was such a sweet guy. We were at a punk rock. We were at some sort of, was it called? Music.
Music, yeah.
And we were on the stage. This was About
We were
7 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. 7-8 years ago. I just remember it was probably what we're comparable to what we're getting into this weekend. We went and we just saw all these bands we loved, and you and I just bopped around, and we hung out with Jack Risch, and we hung out with this guy, we hung out with Wayne from Hatebreed, and this guy and that guy. And I think Jay Bentley was there, maybe, I can't remember. And I know Duff was there. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, Duff was there.
We came down this ramp, and Lee Ving was there, and you hadn't met him. And I remember he came over with open arms, and he knew who you were, and the look on your face, you were like a kid. You were like, you know, he knows who I am, and he was so cool. I've met him a bunch of times and done shows together, but just a super sweet guy.
So Fear did the song I Don't Care About You, which Guns N' Roses covered on the Spaghetti Incident. And little known fact that if you look on the credits, it says background vocals or something from Riki Rachtman. So I sang background vocals on I Don't Care About You on the Guns N' Roses Spaghetti Incident. Listen to the song really closely. Don't think you'll be able to tell that I'm in it. When I went to the studio, Axl was like, hey, will you do this? I'm like, hell yeah, because they knew I had a background in punk, and I went to go do it, and Axl wasn't even in the studio. It was just me in this little room and did it. But it was still really fun to do. Now, about the band Fear, there's a new Fear song.
Oh, yeah, I saw you post it. You know that's a cover, right? The Anno Domini, whatever.
Who's it a cover of?
It's a Pink Floyd cover.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, didn't you put something like, oh, this sounds like...
No, this is what it sounds like to me. First of all, very different. Yeah. And it sounded to me like when Lemmy, for people that don't know, before Lemmy was in Motorhead, Lemmy played in a band called Hawkwind. And I think he only sang 1 or 2 songs in Hawkwind. Usually he was just a bass player. But he did one song called Silver Machine, which I love. Yeah. And it's a song that when you hear it, it just gets stuck in your head.
Yeah.
And to me, the song, I don't remember what the comparison was, but it sounded like Lemmy singing when he was in Hawkwind if he made a song today, sort of.
Yeah, you wrote, I saw you posted that, and the first thought was, oh, I don't know if he knows this is a cover. And it's an obscure, early, deep cut Pink Floyd song. It's like a Syd Barrett era. It's for a tribute record. But Fear did just put out a new record in the last 6 months called like Right and Order or something like that. And it sounds like fucking Fear. It's like borderline offensive and brash and leaving blasting the harmonica and all that shit. So,
and he's got to be in his 70s, man.
I would say he's probably 75. Yeah.
But still kind of looks like a badass. He's done some movies, and Fear's just a good band. And I've worn Fear shirts on Headbangers Ball. Looking forward to seeing Fear a lot. Real quick, let's go over the next 3 bands quickly. Fiddler.
Yeah.
It's not
really
Fiddler. It's like Fiddler.
Yeah, it's an acronym. It stands for Fuck It Dog, Life's a Risk. It's like Huntington Beach slang or something like that. And it's
Hey, I lived in Huntington Beach, and I don't remember saying "fuck it, dog. Life is a risk."
Well, I think they're a bit younger than you. It's a different generation.
Everybody's a bit younger than me.
It's Greg who plays keyboard for TSOL's sons are in the band, and that's where I first heard of them when they first started. And Greg and I had a project at the time ages ago called The Great Unwashed, and I remember him playing. He was like, "Hey, my sons are doing this band," and I was like, they were like teenagers. I was like, "That's cool." And so he played it for me. I've never seen him though, so I think it's cool that like second generation punk rock guys are out there doing awesome, new unique music. And Fiddler's definitely got a unique sound. I don't know what to compare him to.
I don't do any shows without admitting something stupid of myself, but for some reason, I thought Jesus Lizard sang that song Right Here, Right Now, which is actually by Jesus Jones.
Jesus Jones?
And when I went back to listen to Jesus Lizard, I could not have been more wrong. I was like, why is the band that does Right Here, Right Now on this show? But Jesus Lizard seems like it's a good band. I've never seen them live.
Yeah, same.
I also thought that Viagra Boys were going to be like the Island Boys on TikTok. Just make me mad. I'm not big on social media, but I know I have to be on it. And the Island Boys make me mad, and JoJo Siwa makes me mad. JoJo Siwa makes me very mad. You don't know, because I watched one video of JoJo Siwa It's in every single thing. She was a girl that was on like some reality show called Dance Moms, and then she became a dancer on like some Disney show. And then all of a sudden she came out like recently and says, well, I'm gay and I'm the first gay performer bridging the gap. And I've got corpse makeup on, but I don't know who Gene Simmons is. And she does some dance that when I first saw it, I'm like, somebody put a wallet in their mouth. This girl's having a seizure. And it's just, you know, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything in our lives. I don't know where I was going with that, but okay. Viagra Boys. The Viagra Boys, I thought they were going to be like one of those like kind of bands, but they're not. They're pretty badass, right? Have you heard them?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, they're definitely kind of abrasive punk rock, like you would maybe expect them to be. So
we're getting into some bands. We're about to get into some bands that I think a lot of you know. A couple of them were on Headbangers Ball. One band that is not a punk rock band that I'm so glad is on the bill. But right now, I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you about this song. You did right, by the way, Ace. Right?
Oh, I don't know. I can't hear it.
Oh, you can't hear this? Oh, okay. Well, I'm playing that bass song thing. I hope I am.
You know, I wrote that in your at your house.
Oh, you did?
In your living room or whatever.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what the theme. The song is playing now for me to remind everybody to drink Cat House coffee. Look, I didn't just sign the Cat House name on it. Cat House coffee. We're there for the roasting. We picked out the beans. We roast it freshly. And when we get those fresh beans, we put them in bags. We drive them 1 mile, put them in stickers, and ship them fresh to your door. This is a terrible ad, but I'm just telling you, the money we save in ads, we put into our coffee. It's going to be your new favorite coffee. It's the best damn coffee. Go to cathousecoffee.com. That's cathousecoffee.com, and use the code FRESH, and you'll get 7% off. Woo! 7% off. cathousecoffee.com. Do you drink a lot of coffee?
I go through phases. Yeah, on average, I'll have a cup in the morning, yeah.
I probably drink at least 3 cups of coffee every single day. I love coffee.
Sounds about right.
And now that I own a coffee company, it's a lot easier.
I love Cat House coffee.
Cat House coffee is great. Thank you very much, Ace Von Johnson. When I was in high school, this was the album that I put on when my mom would yell at me and I'd slam the door and she'd go, Ricky, you're 29 years old and you're in high school. No, that wasn't true. But this is just one of the all-time greatest records for me. I love TSOL and Dance With Me. And this album is incredible. Ace and I have played Code Blue many times on stage. And we know the guys in the band. Unfortunately, it looks like Mike also is not going to be playing. And we love Mike Roach, just a sweet guy, Cat House regular. Also, was probably the second person to know that I was dating Leah Vendetta, and you were the first. Well, actually, the first person was Leah. No, I think Ace knew that I was dating Leah before Leah knew that I was dating because she didn't really think it.
Yeah, I knew there was a spark in the air before either of you knew, but that's a whole other story for another show.
TSOL is phenomenal. Can't wait to see TSOL. We love them, love their songs. What we do differ on, though, is their new music. Because some of the new music, which is like he was in a band called Joy. He's been in a bunch of bands, and he has played the Cat House. But I really like new TSOL as well as, of course, the old TSOL.
And we had talked about this recently. The new stuff, like the A-Sides record that just came out maybe a month or two ago, some of it it's not that I don't like it. It just is sort of like a older, more mature TSOL that I enjoy. But when the era that I want is the young, fucked up, insane Jack Grisham. That's like, Joy Killer era, Dance With Me era, Weathered Statues era, Cathedral of Tears, all of that, where it's just like, he's all over the place. I feel like now he's almost entering like a lounge kind of.
Well, he did some lounge stuff too. Was it called The Sweet and Low or something? I don't remember what it was called. Gentleman Jack Grisham. But TSOL is great. Jack's great. I think this is going to be their last tour. And on the new album, I'm not, when there's a standard and somebody covers it, I'm like, oh, really? Are you going to make it your own? But my God, TSOL does a great version of Sweet Transvestite from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
It's amazing. It's amazing. They did it as a single a couple years ago, and they finally put it on this full-length album, this A-Sides record. And it's, in my opinion, is probably like the first or second best track on the record. But even the cameo from Keith Morris from the Circle Jerks as was it Janet or whatever.
Because I'm glad I caught you at home. Can we use your phone? Which was in the movie was played by Barry Bostwick.
Oh yeah.
And now I think this is way before your time. In Hollywood, on the Sunset Strip, there was a movie theater called the Tiffany Theater. And at midnight on Saturdays, they used to do the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And when the movie would play, the audience played such a huge part. And, at the wedding, they were all throwing rice. And when they were in the rain, people held misters up and they would yell out certain parts. And that it was just such an incredible time. I remember doing that as a kid. Now, you don't remember any of that stuff, right?
I went to, not that specifically. I mean, I've gone to a couple screenings of Rocky Horror, even as a teenager, and been, involved in everything. But no, definitely not at that theater at that time, no.
How many bands? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we definitely need to address the fact that Dance With Me is both collectively one of our all-time favorite LA punk rock records.
Just one of my favorite records, Dance With Me. There's so many great songs on that. And TSOL, which you think, we're really not just a typical punk rock band, because Jack would sometimes wear makeup and they had a very goth feel to them, but just brilliance. And saw Jack Grisham not that long ago, and that'll be a band that Ace and I will be like in the front singing to.
Oh yeah.
This is going to be a show that, yes, we are backstage, but we're probably not going to be backstage at all, because we're going to be wanting to watch the bands. For people that see people like on the stage and go, look at them, they're on the stage for the sets. The sound sucks up there. Most of the times,
yeah.
I mean, I remember totally different genre, but I remember, when I went to go see Slipknot and I stood on the stage and it was just like, rah, 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 and I'm like, fuck this. And I go in the audience. When people see me at shows, many times they see me out in the audience because you guys are getting the best sound. The stage it sounds like shit when you're standing on the side of the stage. Would you agree?
99% of the time. Yeah, it sounds terrible.
Yeah. From TSOL, which we love, I'd like to incorporate a little bit of like everything in this show, because I know there's some people that aren't into this type of music definitely as much as Ace and I are. How many bands of any genres do you think have done great with a different singer? Not punk rock. How many bands do you think have done great after they switch singers?
Well, AC/DC is the biggest example.
Right.
It's rare, but it can be done. TSOL.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so different though. And that was totally Joe Wood. When Joe Wood was in the band was great. Probably had their biggest hit. They were played on Headbangers Ball. Yeah. But I'm going to use an example of Queensryche. Queensryche, sure. The singer of Queensryche, Jeff Tate, went solo, does his own stuff, and Todd LaTorre sings in Queensryche, and Todd LaTorre is freaking great, and Jeff Tate is great. And there's some bands that, John Corabi, I think, is great on his own. I couldn't tell you a song he sang with Motley Crue. Like, that did not work.
Hooligan's Holiday.
Nah. Yeah, Van Halen worked great with Sammy and Dave.
Sure.
But usually when you switch a lead singer, you always get, it's not the same without this guy. It's not the same without that guy. I can't think of a whole lot of bands that have switched singers and still lasted. But the next band that I'm going to talk about maybe switched singers 5 times? Black Flag.
A lot of singers. Yeah.
Black Flag.
A lot of singers.
First singer was Keith Morris, and I saw them with Keith Morris on Halloween night. And then Ron Reyes, who was my favorite, because that's the one that I saw as a kid more times than none. I love Ron Reyes vocals, yeah. He was great.
And then Dez.
What?
And then Dez.
After Dez, which, crazy enough, there's a really old blues bar in Long Beach. I think it's called the Lighthouse. And it's like, Leah's father was a huge jazz fan. And he always wanted to go to the Lighthouse. So we were sitting there one time. We went there for lunch. And the lady that owned it, I'm going to say her name's Mary. It's probably not. And she was this, older woman and just telling us all these stories about the, Lighthouse and all these great jazz bands that played there and this person, that person. She goes, you look like you would know the band that my son sang in. And it was Dez's mom.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Did you know Dez was briefly in Loaded with Duff McKagan?
Did not know that.
Yeah.
So after Dez, wait, when did they go to Henry Rollins?
Henry's after Dez.
Henry was after Dez. Henry Rollins was probably the most known singer of Black Flag.
I mean, yeah, I'm a massive Rollins fan, but so to me, he's like a pop culture guy. So he's obviously the most notable of the bunch next to probably Keith.
Who was it after Henry Rollins?
Well, then the band dissolved, and then they got back together with Mike Vallely.
Oh, so Mike Vallely is now the singer. Mike Vallely was a professional skateboarder. Mike Vallely has several videos of him beating the shit out of several people at the same time. Security guards coming after him. I mean, Mike Vallely is a 100% badass. Very happy that Mike Vallely likes me, because if he did not like me, I would always walk the other way. Mike Vallely started playing in kind of like a metal band called Revolution Mother that was really, really good. But then Mike became the singer of Black Flag. And when I did my One Foot in the Gutter show I love that I can't think of what city it was in, that I even get to do that. But whatever, one of the many cities I played in. And I looked, might have been New Orleans. And I remember that I was it was at House of Blues, and I was in one little room. And then I think it was the room downstairs, which was big. Black Flag was playing with Mike, and I'd never seen them play with Mike. And I'm like, oh, I like the days with Ron or with, Henry. Mike kills it, and Mike is singing in Black Flag, and Black Flag is a band that, I had that Nervous Breakdown 7-inch when I was in high school, and looking forward to seeing them as well.
Me too. I've only seen them once, and I'm really stoked to see them.
Vandals. Vandals is a band that we were talking a little bit about the Addicts, that they were kind of like a funny band. They had a couple hits, like the song we were talking about yesterday. Oh, that now I remembered what I was going to say. They had a song called "I Want to Be a Cowboy."
Cowboy.
I Want to Be a Cowboy was big. With Lady Killer was their hit song.
Lady Killer was a hit, and then Legend of Pat Brown. Remember that one?
Right, but I don't think that was a hit for them. It was a great song.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I don't know. Well, they had that "Oi to the World" song that No Doubt covered.
Right.
On K-Rock every Christmas for 100 years.
Vandals were a fun band.
Yeah. Joe Escalante, the bass player, currently was their original drummer. He's the only kind of holdover from the original first 5 years of the band. But who's the guitar player that you know? Warren, right?
No, I don't know Warren, but Warren was Warren was like a crazy guy that was like a fleet. That's the only way I can best describe Warren.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he's been with them since like 89 or 90.
Now I remembered what I was going to say. I don't think it's very old. Have you heard the song from Fear? I think it's called "Let's Go Rodeo."
Oh yeah, that's on "Have Another Beer with Fear" from the 90s. Yeah.
Oh, it's not that.
Let's Rodeo.
Oh, fuck you, Let's Rodeo. Fucking great song.
Yeah, that's from their third album. I have it behind me. Because they only had 2 albums back in the day, and then they put out a third record in the 90s called "Have Another Beer with Fear." Not more beer, but "Have Another Beer with Fear." And then that's the third record, and that song is on there. And so is a song called "Demons Sticking Pitchforks in My Brain," and I love that song.
Now we're going to get to a band that I would think that most listeners of the Cat House Hollywood podcast know, because just a fucking great band, in so many ways, a band with a singer that really has a knack of finding the best musicians, a band that has changed their styles in a lot of ways from the rawness, but they've always been great. And the vocalist, the singer, Mike Muir, so much attitude, so much great songs, good friend, sweet guy, love Suicidal Tendencies, loved them when I saw your mommy and your mommy was dead. You know, and of course, you know, you can't, you know, every time it's like a Mike Muir meme with holding a Coke, big deal, you know, because the institutionalized, you know, the song "All I Wanted Was a Pepsi."
Pepsi.
Put me in an institution, said it was the only solution. My mental self, from the enemy myself.
Is one of those songs that you don't even need to be a fan of the band, and it's like pop culture reference. Like All I Wanted Was a Pepsi, you know, that whole thing. At least in my age bracket, in the 90s, it was just like everybody knew that song, and I had no idea who the band was.
I'm guessing, were you ever a skater?
Yeah.
Oh, so then you know who Mike Muir's brother is.
Who's his brother?
Maybe you didn't know. Mike Muir's brother, who is a great guy as well, Red Dog, Jim Muir.
Yeah. Okay. I did know that. I did know that.
Started Dogtown, one of the original Dogtown. And when I broke my arm last year, it was on a Dogtown skateboard. I still wear Dogtown shirts. And Jim Muir, Mike Muir's brother, still owns Dogtown Skates. And that's why, you know, Suicidal had songs like Possessed to Skate, even though Mike Muir wasn't really a skater. But they always had like this kind of like Hispanic lowrider vibe, gang. And there was pretty much, even though they said it wasn't a gang, but there kind of was a gang called the Suicidals back in the day in LA that you didn't want to fuck with. But Suicidal Tendencies, Suicidal Tendencies is one of the few bands that, I'm not going to say they changed their style. They just got a little bit more polished because, you know, Pledge Your Allegiance and all that stuff is classic and so damn good. But when they came out with Lights, Camera, Revolution, and they were on Headbangers Ball all the time, and You Can't Bring Me Down, and every Suicidal Tendencies record I really like. Freedom is probably the one I like the least. But, you know, Lights, Camera, Revolution is just a classic record. And that's when all of a sudden, are they a metal band? Are they a punk rock band? Mike Muir had the knack of picking the greatest musicians. Probably the most famous, Robert Trujillo, was in Suicidal Tendencies. And also, he really showed his skills when their side project, Infectious Grooves, which is like just funk with Mike Muir singing. I mean, both just great bands that I've seen so many times. And I think the world of Mike. And love Suicidal.
Amazing. Amazing stage presence from him. Still, even you know, 40 plus years into their career, because I've been seeing him since I was a kid, and just the kind of like positive. I don't want to say lectures, but like he'll throw out these like sentiments in between songs, and it's kind of inspiring. And then they'll break into some, you know, classic song, and then they'll play their crossover stuff, and just I really love that they kind of took that what we now call crossover and really set the bar for what you could do, especially in Southern California, taking kind of like punk rock and expanding upon it, making it heavy.
And Suicidal Tendencies, they were managed by Q Prime at the time, which also managed Metallica. And Suicidal Tendencies were out on the road opening for Metallica, and they were playing with all the biggest metal bands and got a big metal following. And they're just a freaking great band, always been a great band. When I did talk radio in Los Angeles, I had a show called Riki Rachtman Radio. And every Monday, we would do a thing called the Melrose Mosh. And it was me and Mike Muir talking about the show Melrose Place. If you don't know Melrose Place, it was sort of like a soap opera. And Mike Muir is not the person you would think that was into Melrose Place, but we both loved that show. So we would talk about it once a week on my radio show. And it was always a lot of fun. So definitely looking forward to see. Have you ever met Mike?
No.
Well,
no,
you
I
will.
have not.
You will.
Okay.
Because we're definitely going to spend some time back there seeing Mike, and I really looking forward to that. Ace Von Johnson and I are talking about a show that we're going to this Saturday, June 8th.
No values.
I don't know when you're going to be listening to this show, but if you're anywhere in there, you should go there. And if you see Ace and I walking around, just say, I know you Southern boys. because we're not really, but we're and the people that live in Pomona are probably a hell of a lot more southern than we are.
Yeah, no comment.
But yeah, we're going to that. And really quickly, I also want to put something else out there. That July 19th, 20th, and 21st, I will be a tour guide at the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas. I'm doing my final One Foot in the Gutter show July 22nd in Vegas at Backstage Bar, but I'm going to be doing little private tours for like 20 people at the Punk Rock Museum. From what I understand, now you've been to this Punk Rock Museum, right?
I have. It's amazing.
Do they have a section for Motorhead?
Well, let me tell you this. Each area, they rotate stuff. So have they had stuff in there with Motorhead on it? Absolutely. Did they have stuff with Motorhead on it when I was there? I think one big poster when they took out Anti-Nowhere League in the UK subs, kind of like tie it together for some of the people that maybe didn't get it. But was there a section? Not that I remember.
I think there might be now, but I've got great Lemmy stories and the VFIs, which were the meet and greets for my One Foot in the Gutter show, those sold out in 4 minutes. So if you want to hang out with me and take some pictures and sign stuff or ask whatever you want, go get your tickets for my little tours at the Punk Rock Museum, and you can find the link for that at cathousehollywood.com. Were you going to say something about the Punk Rock Museum? Did Fat Mike start that?
He and a couple other people are the proprietors of it, and it is much. Wait, when you get there, you'll see what I mean. It is much larger than you expect. Like I probably spent 4 hours just in there. I walked through a few times. My buddy, do you know Sean Kama, the tattoo artist?
Of course I do.
Okay. So he is the shop, like the house tattoo artist.
Yeah.
So he brought me in just as a buddy and kind of gave me carte blanche. So they were like, yeah, do whatever you want. And I just walked around for hours. Some stuff I walked by 2 or 3 times because I was like, man, as a fan and a collector of, bric-a-brac, there was stuff I was like, I got to go back and take a picture of that Cramps poster because I'm going to have to find that somewhere.
I don't know if I have a big collection of bric-a-brac, but I did realize that because one of the flights that we're taking, because when we go from the punk rock show, we're going to go to Vegas to check out the venue that I'm doing my One Foot in the Gutter show, and we're on Frontier, which I think if you have a stick of matches, a pack of gum, they're going to charge you more for, and we weren't going to bring any bags, but we didn't think about t-shirt buying, which we are definitely going to buy t-shirts at the show. So I think I'm going to have to pay for bags so we can all the t-shirts we buy, because understand that even though Ace Von Johnson has been in this business for a long time and I've been in this business for a long time, we are hardcore fans, and we are looking at this show like kids going to the show, kids that one of them starts complaining about his neck and back, and you're not there yet, but you will be there.
Trust me, I'm there.
So, and if you want to get tickets for my tour at the Punk Rock Museum, just go to cathousehollywood.com for the links how to get tickets. Joyce Manor, I don't know anything about, so I'm going to just skip over them, but we'll be able to tell about them. The next band was a band that was announced late. And Ace and I didn't know anything about this band, but we sort of looked for them. And I'm talking about a band called The Garden, which from what I hear is very popular with the kids today.
Yeah, that seems like it.
It's twins that were models. I think they modeled for Yves Saint Laurent and Hugo Boss. And what you wouldn't think I like, because I listened to them and I kind of I was almost getting like a 21 Pilots vibe to it. And I listened and I was like, this, I'm not into it. Dude, I listened to it a couple times. It kind of grew on me a little bit.
Really? Okay.
There was a song called California, Here I Come. And, they wear makeup and do little goofy things. Because I think they're like a TikTok band. But
they are, yeah.
But I started, hearing I am a grumpy old man and I deserve to be one. So I tend to shit on new stuff. But it was very unique. It's first of all, I played it, the wife's listening to it. She's loving it. And then I started listening to it again. I'm like, it's not that bad. It's kind of fun, I think.
All right. I've listened to it a few times, because aesthetically I want to like it, and then I'll put it on. It's just, admittedly, it's just not for me.
Yeah.
But, doesn't mean they're not great in their own way. It's not for me.
Next, the band that is one of the bands that probably invented the We're Done final tour and then go on tour again is The Damned. The Damned are a great band. I don't know if I've ever seen an entire Damned set, and you are a huge Damned fan.
Oh, man. I have seen every lineup this band has had since the late 90s when they got back together, including the lineup with Dave's wife, Patricia Morrison, who, speaking of LA punk rock, was in the Bags and Gun Club. And then
let me try this. I love, testing Ace's trivia on old punk rock because he knows so much, which is funny for me because he is so much younger than me. Name a song.
Way younger.
What was not that? Yeah. Name. Do you know what like the big song was from the Bags?
Oh God. I had the Live at the Mask compilation.
It started off like
there, and I can't remember. Was Nicky Beat in the Bags?
I don't know.
Because he may have been. He's who played drums on the debut LA.Guns.
Nicky Beat was in LA.Guns, but he was also in the Screamers under the name. Oh no, under the name Nicky Beat. He was in LA.Guns as Nicky Alexander, right?
I think it was Nicky Beat. I don't know.
In LA.Guns, I think he was Nicky Alexander.
You might be right. I should know. Well, he was in the Cramps as well and the Germs.
When was he in the Germs?
He's on a 2-song single.
What song?
I can look it up while we're talking.
Yeah, because I don't need. But the song that I was singing about the Bags was a song called "Survival."
God, I don't know that.
Alice Bag was a singer. Okay, so we were talking about the Damned.
So the Damned.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So it's basically the peak era lineup reunion. Rat Scabies, a longtime drummer who's been out of the band since maybe the early 90s, is back. I've never seen them with Rat Scabies, and apparently he's killing it on the drums. And Paul Gray on bass. You're getting basically the Black Album and Strawberries era, which is to me peak Damned lineup. And I would say the Damned are probably in my top 5 favorite bands of all time. They're like the Beatles for me.
By the end of this show, I want to see if I can guess your top 3 of your top bands. I can name 3. I wonder if I can go to 5. I'll see if I can go to 5 of your top all-time bands. Like, I don't know if you have any.
Nicky Beat.
What?
In the Germs, 1978, and I will tell you what he's on.
No God.
Nicky Alexander.
What song?
Was that the single? I'm looking for it. I'm trying to engage in the conversation.
No God, maybe No God.
All I know is he's on a 7-inch.
It was a record called Yes, LA. I don't think anybody's following this and listening to it.
It doesn't matter. So, yeah, the Damned. And if you're listening to this...
Just for you, here's a love song.
A love song. But just like TSOL, and I really don't think that TSOL would be TSOL without the Damned first, I appreciate that the Damned also kind of changed with the times. They started out as like a very, prototypical English punk band, and then you get Machine Gun Etiquette, which is this whole other thing, and then the Black Album, which has like elements of, there's a 17-minute song on there called Curtain Call. There's like a prog song at the end of the record. And then they sort of do this foray into goth and then go full tilt by Phantasmagoria. And then they had that huge hit with that cover of Eloise, my Eloise, and then they imploded in the late 80s.
I'm trying to think of bands that we wouldn't have had without the Damned, because there's so much influence, maybe an Avenged Sevenfold, AFI, I don't know, stuff like that. But there was a lot of bands, because the way that Dave looked and everything else, they were very influential. I mean, even
the first.
Go ahead.
English punk band, the first English punk band to put out a single, put out an album, tour, do a tour, and tour America. The Damned came to America and played the Whiskey. I can't remember if it was 77 or 78, and like a handful of bands like the Ramones that were cranking through in the 70s. But there were guys like Ian MacKaye from Minor Threat and whoever else, and apparently even the guys maybe in the Dickies and some other early LA punk bands that were at that Whiskey A Go-Go show that the Damned played and literally, air quote, started the band the next day. That's how influential they were. That's how influential they were.
I want to talk about a band called the Dillinger Escape Plan. And although I have not seen them, I don't think I can tell you that their guitarist, Ben Weinman, is absolutely, I don't even know. It's like seeing like a wrestler in a barbed wire match. You just know that he's got to be getting hurt, but Ben just like would jump off stuff and flip around all the time. And Ben ended up playing guitar with Suicidal Tendencies for a while. And Ben Weinman is absolutely nuts. And I finally met him, and he's like, I'm friends with your sister. I'm like, okay, I didn't expect that. But Ben's pretty rad, and I believe he's still in Dillinger Escape Plan.
Oh, yeah. I think that's like his band. And by the way, it's the Lexicon Devil single, and you were right, the B-side is No God.
Now, do you know the song No God? Oh, by the way, for you tuning in right now, this is a song that's interesting to Ace Von Johnson and myself, nobody else. No God started out with the guitar of Roundabout by Yes. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, that's Nicky B. Amazing.
I did not know that.
Keep going.
Okay, now we're going to get to a band that I'm very excited is on this bill. This is a band that when I did probably it was probably about 4 years ago, I did a show called The Ball on the Gimme Metal app. And it was like my version of the Headbangers Ball, except I picked all the guests and I got to pick every single video on the ball. And the first video that I played was from a Texas band called Power Trip. And it was the Executioner's Tax. What a fucking great thrash metal Texas, today's version of Pantera. Maybe they don't really sound like Pantera. I just say that because they're from Texas and they seem like they were cool guys. And Power Trip was freaking amazing. Have you heard many Power Trip songs? You didn't turn me on to them in the sense that you called me like some other bands that said, check this out. But The Ball was the first time I had actually heard them. I knew the name because I kept seeing it everywhere. And I just sort of wrote it off as like, some newer metal band. It's not really, who cares? But from that point on, I became pretty much a casual fan. And then, of course, with the singer passing, and then I went back and did kind of, worked backwards from there. So I think it's awesome that they're back. And they're back. Now, that's a band that switched a singer because I believe this band was headed for stardom. Their singer, Riley Gale, unfortunately died due to fentanyl. Brothers and sisters, shit is no joke. If you need help, please get help because the ending is not good. And we lost a great singer that I never got to meet. Their new singer is Seth Gilmore, who played in a band called Fugitive with Blake Ibanez, who is also in Power Trip. And what I think happened is they recently did like a jam where they did like 4 Power Trip songs. And I could be wrong on this. And then they decided to get the band back together. So when I saw Power Trip on this lineup, I was like, wow. Like I'm going to get to see this. Thank you, Golden Voice, for putting Power Trip in there because I have not seen this band live. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them. Really looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah, same. And I like that it kind of carries over, just like Dillinger Escape Plan and maybe ST, a little bit of the like, it's not just necessarily a punk festival. Like you get a little bit of crossover and thrash and almost metal elements too. See, if maybe that's the only kind of stuff you like, at least there's more options for that audience as well, rather than just punk bands.
Okay, we've got 6 more bands that are playing this show. From what I understand, the start of the show to the end of the show is almost as long as today's podcast. So the next band on is low on the bill, sort of, but me and Ace were talking about this. They've probably sold more records than the top 3 or 4 bands combined. Surprised they're on the bill, but glad they're on the bill. Sublime.
Yeah, I've never seen Sublime. So even with Bradley, is it Bradley Noel?
Yeah.
His son singing, to me, is probably as cool of a replacement posthumously you could get, because it's not just some guy or maybe someone that sounds like. It's not only somebody that sounds like him, but he looks like him because it's his fucking kid. And I think that's a cool way to kind of keep the legacy alive. You got bands like Alice in Chains and STP and a handful of other bands where maybe the singer's gone and they still carry forward. So I think it's only fair that Sublime gets that opportunity as well. And I never got to see him.
And talk about hits. I mean, I don't practice Santeria. And what was the wrong way? But they've had radio hits.
A ton of K-Rock clobbered me over the head with Sublime in the 90s. You couldn't escape it. The Date Rape song, so many songs, big hits. So
Sublime is on the bill, which is Sugar Ray. Shout out to Mark McGrath. But Sugar Ray, they really took a lot from Sublime, didn't they?
I think so. I never really looked at it that way, but I feel like that's definitely the same wheelhouse.
But that being said, Sublime doesn't sound anything like Sugar Ray.
No, not at all.
Now we're getting to some bands, and I want to talk about a band. My oldest friend, the first person I ever knew in rock and roll, we were kids and great friends, and this band has put out so many phenomenal albums, has so many hits that you're like, holy shit, I didn't even think about that. And we're talking about the great Bad Religion. I had a show from a European tour that I had, that's the European tour in 1995, and I remember, I think Jay gave it to me, and I was like, thanks. And I didn't wear it because I'm not going to wear a new Bad Religion shirt, and I've still got this shirt now. And that's 30 years old now. But Bad Religion, another band that I've seen throughout the years, and they bring it every time. They've got a lot of almost mainstream hits, a lot of great punk rock songs, and another band that's been around for decades and has not lost it at all.
No, I actually flew out to see them with Social D about a month or two ago, and Bad Religion and Social D. But Bad Religion, I would say 10 out of 10. I've been going to see them since the late 90s. I've never seen a Bad Religion show, A. And B, this show I saw in Texas a few weeks ago, might have been their best fucking show, and they've been around for, 45 years. So, Jay is just a beast on stage. Really great guy. We had a great hang after. And then you factor in as well the players. I mean, Brian Baker on guitar. Jeez.
I saw Bad Religion playing. Brian Baker wore a Cat House t-shirt.
I believe it. When I saw them, Brian and I got to catch up a little bit, and he was talking about Cat House. We were talking about Junkyard era. And just
because for people that don't know, Brian Baker, who was in Bad Religion, was also in Minor Threat, but was also in the band Junkyard, which was a Cat House band, and was on Headbangers Ball, and was just have some great songs, and is one of those bands, like they had the song Hollywood and Simple Man, which was it wasn't Skinner's Simple Man, but it was in the same kind of realm. Yeah. And Junkyard is a band that never sounded dated to me. Like they sound current always.
They still do. It's that kind of blues rock that kind of never really went out of vogue, although maybe never really was in vogue, but what doesn't matter. They're still a great band. And again, just like Pussycat and LA.Guns and a handful of other bands, they had that sort of punk rock edge undercurrent. And what do you expect? I mean, Chris Gates, the other original guitar player, he was in was it Big Boys?
Big Boys in Dallas, Texas. Big Boys.
Yeah. And obviously Brian Baker coming out of Minor Threat and Dag Nasty, and actually he was very briefly in Samhain.
Did not know that. And we really didn't talk about Bad Religion, but Bad Religion's got so many great songs that a lot of you know, and a lot of old punk rock songs that people like us know. But, what would be their biggest hit? Sorrow?
I would argue that it would be...
Mother, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, that's definitely one of them. But I would argue it's off of the Atlantic albums. I would say either 21st Century Digital Boy or Infected, because they were...
I think 21st Century Digital... And we're talking about... Yeah. And Infected was a big hit, but Sorrow was a huge hit. Their later albums still putting out great songs.
Los Angeles is Burning.
And Los Angeles. What would you call that type of music?
I would just say melodic punk rock.
Yeah, but their old stuff
hardcore.
No Control, great song. Latchkey Kids was just
that's early.
1, 2, 3, 4, and that's that's the band that we're
Sublime covered.
Latchkey.
Sublime covered Bad Religion. Not that song, but they covered Bad Religion.
Well, Biohazard covered "We're All Gonna Die," right?
Yeah.
So Bad Religion is a band that we're going to spend a lot of time hanging out with. Jay Bentley went to my One Foot in the Gutter show in LA, which was funny because one of the stories was about him. Were you at the LA show?
No.
Oh, because Ace saw One Foot in the Gutter in Nashville, and the very first show, very helpful with the very first show. And LA was a fun show because I sold out in advance. And because people like Jay Bentley were there and, and Tammy and all these other people that were such a big part of much of the show, it was a blast. The next band that we're going to talk about is a band that I know I did turn you on to when I first heard their song, New Thing, I think. And we're talking about a band.
You tried to turn me on to them. So before the newest record that blew up came out, you told me about the album before it. And I played it and I liked it. And then it went in the I forgot bin. And then you called me again when the newest record came out, and you were like, you need to listen to this. Because I remember it was the second time you brought it to my attention. And it blew my mind.
Turnstile is a great band. They're doing their own thing. They're great. They've gotten pretty big. I think they were like on tour with Blink-182 and probably playing, but it's like, an album I bought, an album that I do own the t-shirts for. And, a lot of young kids like them, but they're just a freaking great band. And I've seen them, and they're very different to me, but I really like them. And they've got great songs and just funky interludes, and looking forward to seeing Turnstile a lot. Next band is somebody that is completely different than Turnstile, a true rock and roll legend. Pretty sure that his original band is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yes?
The Stooges fucking better be, but I can't confirm or deny.
Well, MC5 got in, so I think the Stooges got in.
I'll look.
What we're talking about, we're going to be talking about Iggy Pop. Iggy Pop is he the one that they call the Godfather of Punk? I think so. Yes. But is also, he wrote Bowie's China Girl, I think, and he was friends with Bowie.
He wrote a couple songs with or for Bowie, yeah.
And when I lived in New Zealand and I was 16 years old, there was an album from Iggy Pop called New Values, I believe, that had the song, I'm only 5'1", I got a pain in my heart. And then I'm bored, I'm the chairman of the board. But the biggest hit I guess he ever had was Lust for Life, right?
Oh, yeah. He Lust for Life and... I guess that's probably his biggest hit. I was going to say maybe The Passenger or something like that. He's got a couple
That's a good song. That's a good... I didn't even think about that one. I am the passenger. I ride and I ride.
And you were right. They were inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2010.
Okay. So Iggy Pop is on this bill.
Candy. We did Candy?
We did Candy on stage in Nashville, and I sang Iggy Pop's part, and Leah Vendetta sang, was it Kate Pearson?
Yes, from B-52s.
Very few, you talk about the singers that have a distinctive voice that you can tell right away who it is. Like an Ozzy, you can always tell Ozzy's voice. Kate Pearson and the other girls whose name I can't remember from the B-52s, what incredible voices they had. So unique,
Yeah.
Did you ever like the B-52s?
I love the B-52s. I love all that, a lot of that, I guess, would you call it new wave?
Absolutely.
Like the 80s stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was obviously I was not there, but as an outsider looking back and then before the internet, going like, okay, so some of these bands came out of the punk scene, but they're not a punk band. and like maybe the Cars and B-52s and stuff like that, where it's almost power pop.
They used to call Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers punk rock, like new wave punk rock.
Yeah, that's so
Now, do you know what band I used to go see play, and they were opening the most hardcore punk rock shows, and they were on every bill, was the Go-Go's.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
I mean, Belinda Carlisle at one point sort of played the drums for the Germs.
I was just going to say, wasn't there a connection to the Germs? There it is. Yeah, but that's that whole, any organic artistic scene, like you look at New York or LA and Hollywood or London, England, you know, in those era where you get these bands where, you know, Johnny Thunders and Television and the Ramones and Blondie, they started at the same time. They don't sound the same, you know? So I kind of looked at it like that, where it was like these bands all started around the same time and maybe just took what they were doing and ran with it, you know, and maybe they found their own unique success in a different genre.
I wouldn't say that we are fanboys at all, but I know that, and I think I speak for you too, it'd be pretty rad to get a picture with Iggy Pop, right?
I would shit a brick. I would love that. I've stood by him. I stood by him at Punk Rock Bowling a couple years ago. I had brokered a sponsor deal for them, and so they gave me like the VIP, you know, go wherever the fuck you want credentials. And I remember standing by him and Jello Biafra, and the person I was with at the time was like, "Go ask him for a picture." And I was like, "No."
Yeah, it's really weird.
I'm so awkward at that sometimes.
You know, I had that rule at the Cat House that nobody could ever bring cameras in there, and I didn't take pictures with people, and I really wish I did. And, you know, I don't have a picture of Iggy Pop because I've never met him, but it would be kind of cool, and I wish I took more pictures with some of these people that I just thought I'd always see them, and I never did. Yeah. So excited to see Iggy Pop. We're coming down to the final two bands, and before we get to the final two bands, this is something that I want to tell you that is very important, that the One Foot in the Gutter show, for people that don't know, I've been doing these spoken word shows now for, God, has it been I think it's been like 2 years or something. Maybe 3?
More than that.
Wow.
About 3, yeah.
I get up on stage and I tell all sorts of stories about Headbangers Ball and Cat House and life and rags to riches, a rock and roll redemption story, I've heard it called. But I love doing One Foot in the Gutter, and I'm sorry to say that my final show, pretty sure, is going to be in Las Vegas, July 22nd. So you should get tickets, because the last time I checked, we were really low on tickets. You can get tickets to the Vegas show July 22nd, and also the 19th, 20th, and 21st. I'll be giving tours in Vegas at the Punk Rock Museum. And check with cathousehollywood.com, because I hope to announce sometime this week a hotel that we're all going to be staying at. There's going to be group rates. So right now, go to cathousehollywood.com, pick out a couple of tickets, pick up a couple of tickets for my show, One Foot in the Gutter. I promise that you will like it. Earlier, the theme song you heard was from Battery Club. This song is the Triple R theme song, and you do know who did this song, right? Oh, you can't hear it.
I can't hear it.
Come on, Ace, you know who did this song? You know who did the song? Listen.
You have a condenser mic and it's not picking up what you're hearing.
Okay, who played that song? Played every instrument on that song and wrote that song for me.
Was it Mark Morton? No, that's not Morton.
You didn't even hear the song and you knew who it was.
No, I can't hear it. I can't hear it on my end.
But you're correct. Mark Morton from Lamb of God wrote me that song. Another guy that the only, there's very few people in metal or punk rock that you say are sweethearts, but Mark Morton is, I love Mark. Honor he let me go to his wedding, and he wrote me that song. And are you a Lamb of God fan?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen them live?
Yes.
Dude, they're fucking great. I know that they're big, but I know there's some people from the, our era, my era, that really don't listen to newer bands, even though they're not a newer band. But I think they're this era's Pantera.
I agree 100%. I actually got to play, I believe it was London Dungeon with Randy Blythe and Doyle.
Really?
Yep, at that same thing we did in Massachusetts a year or two earlier.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
they're
I love Lamb of
they're
God.
so good, and I love them. And they did the Headbangers Boat last year and asked me to come aboard, and they're asking me to come aboard this year as well. They treat me so good, and I got to do a sit down interview with Randy on Headbangers Boat, and it was just it was such a good time. I love that band so much. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the No Value show, but I get to go see him again. I really wish you could go to this Headbangers Boat. This is going to be a good one.
When in October? It's in October.
Like around Halloween.
Okay, I don't know if I'm working or not. If I'm not, I'll go.
Well, also on that bill is Exodus.
Cool.
And Corrosion of Conformity.
I love COC.
And Death Clock.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you watch Metalocalypse?
Metalocalypse?
Yeah.
Metapopolis?
Do you watch it?
Papadopoulos. I did 10, 15 years ago, yeah.
I gave it another shot. It is good. It's pretty fucking good.
It's fun.
Okay, which obviously has nothing to do with the final two bands that are on this bill. And still an hour and a half. Fuck, I hope it recorded this time. If it didn't, we're not going to do this show.
Yeah. No.
Social Distortion.
One of my favorite fucking bands. Huge fan. Huge Mike Ness fan. Huge Social D fan.
Love Social Distortion. When I was in a band called Battery Club, John Maurer, who was in Social Distortion for a long time, was in the band Battery Club. And some of the songs, people have heard Battery Club and noticed, like Sick Inside, which is my favorite song, which is kind of poppy, has a little Social Distortion feel to it, right?
Similarities. Yeah, similarities for sure.
And Social Distortion's a great band. Now they got the great Johnny Two Bags in the band. Sweetheart, too.
Yeah. Speaking of Sweethearts, yeah, he's a super great guy. He and I have been acquainted for a while and got to sit down and catch up when I saw them a few weeks ago and kind of swap some more stories about our time playing in the U.S. Bombs and a couple other things. But just what a great guy. What a great band. And actually had a band in my 20s with the original drummer Derek O'Brien, who was on the Mommy's Little Monster and Mainliner era releases. We were in a band together for a few years called the Generators, and the singer Doug just actually passed earlier this week. So just want to
when you talk about bands that, I don't really want to use the word matured, but bands that really, really changed and in a sense kept on getting better, even though I loved, I think the first Social Distortion song I ever heard was probably Mainliner. And if you listen to Mainliner in 1945, and then their style changed. And when I was in Battery Club, we did So Far Away. And I think I've done So Far Away with you on stage as well. And then to the stuff that Mike Ness is doing now and Social Distortion is doing now, they matured. The audience came with them the whole way. And Social Distortion's a great band.
Yeah, I always said Mike Ness is kind of like the Tom Petty of punk rock. He's just this great, could take 3 chords, tell a story, write a fantastic song, leave you wanting more. And I also really appreciate the fact that in his off time, he spends a lot of time working with animal rescues and just volunteering and doing stuff in that vein, because that's something that's important to me too. So really love that. Be fun
to see Social Distortion. When in LA, they used to play I guess it's a residency at House of Blues, and they would play like 20 shows and sell at House of Blues.
Yeah.
And I think Bad Religion did the same thing.
Yeah. You just do they just set up and park all their gear on stage and do 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 shows and hit all those House of Blues venues and just crush. I think the first time I saw Bad Religion and Social D separately in my teens was one of those type of shows, and they've just been consistently great. And actually, so you're talking about Social Distortion maturing and getting better. I think my favorite Social D records almost go backwards chronologically. Like my favorite record might be Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll, which is their second most recent record. It's like 15 or 20 years old, but and then the one before it, White Light, White Heat, White Trash. And then going backwards somewhere between Heaven and Hell and the self-titled record, et cetera, et cetera. So for me personally as a fan, I think they've just gotten better and better.
Next time we play, can we play She's a Knockout?
Oh, yeah.
I think I can play that on guitar. Is it 3 chords?
She's a knockout. Yeah, of course it's 3 chords.
Okay, good. I can play that. That's a good song. Now we come to the final band on the No Values show, which, damn, Golden Voice better give us a parking pass or something for doing a whole frigging podcast about this show.
Yeah. Thanks, Golden
Voice. A band that I know is your favorite band. Would this be your number one favorite band?
In the arc of my life, and what band I have the most albums from and T-shirts from and all that
posters and a
posters
band that is
trivial information.
Band that is tattooed on you more than once.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I know I have the Die Die My Darling artwork on me. I feel like I have. See, I have you probably know, but and likewise, I have a suit. So like my whole body is covered in tattoos. So I have stuff on me that I don't see ever, or I forget about, like on the back of my calves and legs and the back of my kneecaps. I don't fucking know, but I'm sure there's 2 or 3 or 8 Misfits tattoos on me somewhere. But yeah, I don't maybe listen to them even on a weekly basis at this point in my life, but for, when push comes to shove, Misfits are definitely my favorite fucking band.
The Misfits to you are as like Motorhead is to me.
Yeah. They're like my Kiss. If you were like a kid in the peak 70s Kiss era is how, as a teenager, I felt with the Misfits. I grew the devil lock. And I used to put spikes on my jacket shoulders and all that. Like, I'm talking middle school, like 8th grade, like weird, before this shit was kind of cool. I mean, I used to get beat up and all that shit, because I looked like a weirdo and because I was obsessed with this band writing punk rock songs about horror movies, and it was the Misfits. So to see them come back as the what we get now, the Jerry and Doyle and Glenn Danzig, basically, it's called the original Misfits for all intents and purposes. I mean, as a fan is fucking massive, because I saw all the other sort of, the Michael Graves era and the Jerry Only era and the Des Cadena era and all that stuff,
Michael Graves era was one that it's another case of like, they should have just not called them the Misfits, because when I went back and listened to some of the Michael Graves music, which I didn't like before I even heard it, because it was the Misfits without Glenn Danzig. But then I went back and I listened to it, and it's not bad. It's pretty good, the Michael Graves stuff. But do you agree?
Those 2 records are stellar records, but it is not it's the Misfits because it is now, and all these people have had 25 plus years to digest it and accept that that's the Misfits. But when those records came out, I remember being so conflicted because, again, like we said, had it been called something else, it would have been my favorite band. But it's not Glenn Danzig singing. It's not Glenn Danzig songwriting. The imagery that Glenn all predominantly came up with was gone, and so they tried to replicate a lot of that, which for the most part they did successfully in that era. And then again, and then Michael left the band, and then Jerry kind of took over, and it became almost like I don't want to talk poorly of anybody because I love Jerry, but it became sort of a shell of what it was. They put out like Project 1950s and some other stuff that, was, I would say, subpar. And ultimately, no matter what you think about this, that, or the other thing, Glenn Danzig is a force majeure songwriter in any genre he has.
Agreed.
And probably gave us some of the greatest American punk rock ditties, songs, timeless. I mean, fucking Last Caress, Where Eagles Dare,
which Metallica covered,
Halloween. Yeah, I mean, what Attitude that Guns N' Roses covered,
Attitude,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that is a testament. Skate culture, all that absorb. I mean, in my room right now, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 Misfit skate decks from where I'm sitting. I mean, so it was a big thing. It was more than just like, some silly punk band. It's like comparable to Kiss.
It's so funny how certain bands bring you back to a certain era. And when I think of the Misfits, and I remember listening to the Misfits, even though, like I said earlier, I was actually kind of a bigger Glenn Danzig fan than I was the Misfits, but I did like the Misfits, and that's when Nikki Sixx was dating Vanity of Vanity Six, and they ended up breaking up, and Vanity had, I'm going somewhere with this, and Vanity had Nikki Sixx's Jeep, and she left it out in the rain. So I said, Nikki, let me buy your Jeep. And he's like, yeah, I'll sell it to you. So I bought his Jeep. So I drove around with his Jeep that was Nikki Sixx's Jeep. But I always remember that I always listen to the Misfits. Like when I think of the Misfits, I think of that Jeep. So that's what I think of Misfits. So We went to go see the Misfits probably about 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was just before the pandemic, so 4 or 5 years ago.
And it was the first time that I ever saw the Misfits. And I thought it was a great show because Agnostic Front was playing. Who else was on that bill?
Was it Dropkick Murphys?
I don't remember.
I just know we watched a lot, as much of Agnostic Front of AF as we could get into. Like by the time we were in there, they were on. And then there was another band, and I think we all collectively were like, let's go get a soda or something. Because remember, I think we stood out front and we were talking with Jeff Kresge, who at the time was playing for Fear, and as a guy I've known since I was a teenager. But and then the Misfits. Fucking what a brilliant show.
But the beauty of that show was, because I always thought it was weird that the Misfits were playing and were selling out arenas. I mean, sold out Madison Square Garden. We saw them play the Philadelphia Spectrum, sold out. And the thing is, the sound wasn't very good. So expecting Glenn Danzig to say like, hell, fix the sound. But he didn't. And he played the whole show, which dawned on me that I think what they were trying to not put out there was like, hey, you're seeing the Misfits in some club that doesn't have the great sound. Like it was almost supposed to sound not great, but the show was so great.
Awesome.
Doyle, who is a friend of both of ours, another guy that's really, I mean, if ever there was a walking contradiction, that would be Doyle von Frankenstein, because he is like the biggest, gnarliest, scariest guy and couldn't be more of a sweet guy. We love Doyle. Right?
I love Doyle. He usually on my birthday will call or text and just be like, hey bro, happy birthday, just want to tell you I love you. And I'm like, okay, childhood hero.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
It's weird.
You know, like, I love you too, bro. Great. You know, just the sweetest human.
And we had this discussion how it worked out last time that we don't need to rehash. But when I got to go back and Glenn wasn't seeing anybody, and I got to go back and see Glenn Danzig backstage, because Glenn Danzig, even though people like to say, oh, Glenn hated you, Dave Mustaine hated you, everybody hated me. Nah. But Glenn played my
He was excited to see you, right?
Oh my God. Glenn played my birthday party. He played at the Cat House. Him and James Hetfield used to hang out at the Cat House way in the early days, but I've always been friends with Glenn Danzig, and I love Glenn Danzig, and I love him in the Misfits, and it was so nice to get back there and see him, and he's just freaking cool. And a little Danzig story. Danzig stories. We went to Germany with the Headbangers Ball. That's the one where allegedly Glenn Danzig tried to throw me in the fire, but what happened is, the real story, and I don't even know if I told you, Ace, is the real story. They said, look, there's certain things that Glenn does not want to talk about. And please don't bring up a Misfits reunion. So we're talking a little bit, and about 10 minutes into the interview, I'm like, you know, what if, and he's like, don't say it, Ricky. I'm like, what if for one pay-per-view, don't say it, Ricky, you put together, and he pretended to throw me in the fire, but he did it kind of with a smile because he did not want to talk about a Misfits reunion.
With you.
But he was right. You know, the band never got back together, just like Kiss will never put their makeup on and stuff like that.
Or Motley Crue will never play again.
Oh, are they playing? So great that the Misfits did get back together. And also our other friend, AC Slade, is also playing in the Misfits.
Yeah, he's second.
But I think they put him like in a hotel in the next day with a long, like they don't give AC any love.
Well, he's a side guy in the band. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he plays in the back and whatever. I mean, you know, ultimately people want to see Doyle, Jerry, and Glenn. And then they've got Dave Lombardo, who's a beast on drums.
Fuck.
From Slayer.
I mean, come on.
Every band. Lombardo. Totally a monster.
Suicidal Tendencies. That's another, like I talk about Suicidal Tendencies always having the best musicians. You know, Robert Trujillo, Dave Lombardo played in Suicidal. And
my buddy Raw, I played in the band with this kid for a minute, and his favorite band was Suicidal. And within a year, he was playing bass for ST. And then now Raw is in Korn.
Wow. But so basically, we're just to tell you that we really love the Misfits, And I hope you've enjoyed this show. We are going to start doing Cat House Hollywood podcasts. And of course, this podcast was set up just to recap some of the old stories of back in the day of raunch, roll, sleaze, and debauchery. But a lot of those stories are in my spoken word show, One Foot in the Gutter. And Ace and I were just so excited about this show. I'm like, let's just turn on the microphone and talk about it. So this is obviously very different to anything that I've ever put out there, being the subject matter and being that we're just talking about a bunch of bands on a bill. But I think it's kind of fun. I think when we find a big metal festival or something else, we'll all talk about that too. Because if you like this, please leave it in the comments. Go back and listen to the other episodes of the Cat House Hollywood podcast, and I will start to leave more. And maybe, I don't know if we're going to do another podcast talking. We should do the Ace Von Johnson podcast and just talk about, what you're doing now and talk about LA Guns and stuff like that. But I'm really looking forward to us hanging out and going to this show.
I am too. I'm definitely excited about the show and to see the Misfits and everybody else.
How many band t-shirts will you buy?
I'll probably set a limit and say no more than 3.
That's what I'm going to say, 3. But you probably won't buy a Misfits shirt.
If it's a
if it's a Misfits shirt, if it's a Misfits shirt that is like just for this show.
Yeah, you know what? I may just go for the easy way out and just see if I can buy a festival shirt and just be like, look, I've got the shirt with everything.
Don't usually wear festival shirts, but this might be a festival shirt I'll wear.
Yeah, this would probably be the one. This would probably be the one for sure, especially since I'm a fan of 2/3 or more of the bands,
Very rare that you get a festival that you like a lot of the bands.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. I feel like half the time, half or more of the bill of any festival, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, they're playing, but I'm not going to go. This is like, actually, Tony Higbee today called this our wet dream festival.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a fan of that, or is he talking about you or you and me?
Well, he knows that we're going. But
yeah.
We were at a record store today. We were at a LRB Records and Skate in the Nashville area today, and the owner and I were talking about punk rock. And then Tony was like, "Oh, what's that punk festival you and Ricky are going to?" And then I said, "Oh, No Values." And he goes, "Yeah, it's like their wet dream festival."
I was trying to think of like the bands that aren't on this bill.
Yeah,
I
could name a few.
Yeah, I can name a few too.
Dead Kennedys.
But Jello Biafra is going to be the DJ and more.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting as well.
Yeah, I don't know what capacity that'll be, but I'm curious.
Descendants.
Maybe he'll be up there. Yeah,
Descendants, awesome. Circle Jerks, Rancid.
Yeah.
So glad. I think I'm going to have to buy a Power Trip shirt. I could see myself getting like a long sleeve Power Trip shirt, and maybe, I don't know what TSOL is going to have for merch, even though I already have TSOL shirts. And
I need a TSOL trucker hat.
I have a great TSOL hat that Mike Roach gave to me that they were playing.
Oh,
were you there when he did?
Right with you.
Oh, you did.
Standing right next to you when he gave me that.
We were just telling him, I think I said like, cool hat. And Mike Roach just took it off. He goes, here you go. And I've done photos with that hat, and it's just a great hat. We love you, Mike. I wish Mike, I want to find out how Mike is doing. But we're really looking forward to this show. What's up with LA Guns?
Slowly working on a new record. Just signed to Cleopatra. New album coming out next year. A couple dates throughout the summer and into the fall. Not too busy, but doing some stuff with Tom Kiefer again as well. And then I'm just staying busy with everything else.
So let's talk about this everything else. There was a band that we sort of mentioned, Morning Noise. And
so I don't know if I want to name drop everybody. Only I'll tell you the singer.
Hold on, okay? Ace is working on another project, and here's the thing: we're almost 2 hours into this show. Don't worry about name dropping because I don't think people are still there. And if you have been listening, God, I love you. Thank you. But tell me about this project, because I heard a song and I really liked it.
Thanks. So the band is still untitled as far as what the project's going to be called. I've been writing. So yeah, fuck it. So Steve Zing from Sam Hain and the current bass player of Danzig and also drummer of Morning Noise. And I had been kind of kicking around ideas, and I've been sending him songs intermittently for the last half of last year. And we were going to be working with some people, and this guy didn't work out, and that didn't work out, whatever else. And I ended up with this batch of, well, let's say 10 songs. And Steve was like, well, maybe we'll just get a different singer and do whatever and see what happens. And so coincidentally, I was catching up with my friend Christian Martucci, who is in Stone Sour and also plays with Corey Taylor. He's currently in Europe with the CMFT band, promoting their new record. But he also comes from a punk rock background. He used to play with Dee Dee fucking Ramone. He was in Royal Highness with Johnny Martin and Todd Youth. And it's just small world, LA, musician type guys. And I've known him for ages. And I sent him some of the stuff, and he goes, "This is great." He goes, "Could I have a shot at this? As far as putting some, singing on it." And he sent me a couple songs back, and I was like, "Dude, do you want to be in my band, bro?" And in the interim, I was on the maybe 2 months ago, I was on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and I ran into Johnny Kelly of Typo Negative. He used to play in Danzig for a long time as well, and he's currently drumming for Quiet Riot. And he goes, "Oh, Steve told me that you guys were working on some stuff and blah, blah, blah." He goes, I'd like to hear it. And so I sent him some songs. He goes, "This is great. Can I send you some drums on it?" And I said, "Sure." And so, and he and Steve had been talking, and I was like, "I guess we have a fucking band. I got a drummer, a bass player, I sort of play guitar, and I got Christian Martucci singing on the stuff." So we're just fleshing out demos right now. I think Martucci's wrapping up his third song, vocally speaking. And he's on tour right now.
Are we going to hear any of this stuff?
I plan on releasing at least a song by the end of the year.
What is the band going to be called?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
What are titles you're working on? What are some ideas?
Well, I don't want to say it. I'm kicking around a couple ideas, but
because the Viagra Boys is already taken.
It is. So is the True Sounds of Liberty. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't know. The name doesn't matter, but it's a cool sort of heavy death rock, punky rock, Danzig meets, TSOL kind of thing. I don't know, with some cool players. I mean, you got the guy from fucking Typo Negative and Danzig, and the guy from Stone Sour, and my.
Did you like Typo Negative?
I have a Typo tattoo. I'm a huge.
Did you ever meet Peter Steele?
Did I meet him?
Yeah.
No, I only saw them once, but I never met him.
I did.
Oh yeah, go on, give me a Typo Negative story.
One of the funniest motherfuckers I ever met. Never knew it. He came on the set of Headbangers Ball, big menacing dude, and he was just so funny. And that was a band. There's a lot of bands, metal bands, that I wasn't really totally into back in the day, and then later I became big fans of. Like, I listened to Typo Negative quite a lot, and the funny thing about getting older is I find myself listening to heavier and heavier shit. Like back on Headbangers Ball, I wasn't the biggest. I didn't listen to much Venom, and now I have Venom, and I like Possessed. And I've always loved bands like Exodus and Testament and Death Angel and Slayer and and those type of bands. But of the 80s genre, noticing I don't. Oh, and here's another thing, because I just noticed that we really got to wrap it up. I was having this discussion with Leah, and maybe we should save this for another show, but we'll talk about it now anyway, about bands that really influenced this 80s rock scene and in the Cat House scene. And I would think the most influential band of our entire scene would have to be Hanoi Rocks.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hanoi Rocks, definitely. I mean, the music is one thing, but the style, like aesthetically speaking, and combined with the music, I don't think you'd have Guns N' Roses or Poison or most of those bands. So yeah, and the fact that Michael Monroe is still touring and also puts on just this phenomenal show, and also is an avid punk rock guy. They've covered on the Hanoi Rocks live record. They covered The Damned.
Hey, before we go, I know that I was telling you about I was listening to Fear, and I guess that Fuck You Let's Rodeo is a little bit older. What about their version of Rose Tattoo's Nice Boys Don't Play Rock and Roll? How is that old?
Oh, no, that's from last year. I think
it's fucking great.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, Slash played on it, I think.
I didn't know that.
New. Yeah. They just started putting out new stuff in the last maybe 24 months recently. recently.
So there's some bands that we're going to be seeing this weekend. Hope you enjoyed listening to Ace Von Johnson and myself. We call this the Pre-No Values show, but really what it is just putting out another podcast that I didn't want to edit and prepare much. So, of course, Ace came through. And it's just, dude, it's just going to be really good for us just to hang out and go see some great bands. And then we're going to go to Vegas right away to check out the club that I'm playing at. The Vegas One Foot in the Gutter show is really going to be a big deal. I really want you to get your tickets. Get them now. Go to cathousehollywood.com for the link. July 22nd at Backstage Bar, and then July 19th, 20th, and 21st, I'm at the Punk Rock Museum giving out private tours. And you can find out all that information on cathousehollywood.com. Is there anything else that you want to plug that's not going to take very long?
Well, actually, yeah. First of all, I want to just hope that people will, go adopt a pet, a shelter pet. Go to your local shelter, donate, adopt, rescue, foster. Fostering is a big thing, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to go too long into it because I can, but just anything in that realm, please. Just even if you're donating $5 a month to your local shelter, it goes a long way. And then also music stuff, blah blah blah. If you want to keep up with me, I am on social media, but I don't really post much. But if you do actually want to keep up with what I'm really doing,
Patreon, baby,
et cetera, my fucking Patreon. That's where I focus all my time. Patreon.com/Ace Von Johnson, ACEVONJOHNSON. And follow me there, and like and subscribe and all that stuff. And if not, just hang out with Ricky and I at the No Values Festival.
I got you. Got to help me with the Patreon. I got to get that Patreon thing.
You should. I'm telling you.
Hey, so nice to hang out with you again, and we're going to have such a blast this week, so I look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for listening to the Cat House Hollywood podcast, a little pre-No Values show, and I think the next episode is going to be with Tom Morello. Did you know that Tom Morello, it's kind of an older episode that I haven't posted for a while, but Tom Morello not only went to the Cat House, but Tom Morello saw my early band Virgin and even remembered some of our songs.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, so Tom Morello, even though you wouldn't think of Rage or his stuff being a Cat House band, Tom Morello was back around in those days, and he's just a good guy and one of the great musicians out there. So we're looking for that one. Thank you again, Ace. I'm Riki Rachtman. Remember to keep one foot in the gutter, one fist in the gold.